The first rule they teach you at Oakridge Correctional is never to see the inmates as people. They're numbers, cases, charges, walking manifestations of their crimes. Not men with stories, regrets, or dreams. Especially not dreams. I've been a guard here for 12 years, and I've gotten good at it. I maintain the necessary distance. I don't ask questions about their lives before. I don't wonder what happens to them after. I do my job, collect my paycheck, and leave the weight of this place at the gates when my shift ends. Or at least that's how it was supposed to be. Until Adam Reeves arrived in cell block D, my first impression of inmate number 4587 was unremarkable. Medium height, lean build, dark hair cut close to regulation, quiet, unlike many new arrivals who came in swinging fists or curses. He kept his head down, followed instructions, spoke only when spoken to. A model prisoner from the start, which should have made him forgettable. But there was something about his eyes. They didn't match this place. Too aware, too alive. They watched everything with an intelligence that seemed to see through walls. "Sullivan, you've got night rounds in D Block this month," Captain Reeves informed me during shift change one evening. I nodded, accepting the assignment without complaint. Night duty was usually quiet, just checking cells every hour, making sure no one was doing anything they shouldn't. The first few nights passed without incident. Adam Reeves was always awake when I passed his cell, sitting on his bunk with a book in hand. We didn't speak beyond the customary acknowledgement. A nod from me, a slight incline of his head in return. On the fourth night I noticed the title of his book. "Dostoevsky?" I asked before I could stop myself. His eyes lifted to mine, surprised at the personal address. "Crime and Punishment," he confirmed, showing me the cover. Heavy reading. A slight smile curved his lips. Seemed appropriate, given the circumstances. I should have moved on then. Should have continued my rounds without another word. Instead, I heard myself ask, "What do you think of it?" "Raskolnikov believed he was above morality," Adam replied, closing the book around his finger to hold his place. "That exceptional men shouldn't be bound by ordinary laws. I disagree. No one should be above justice." There was something pointed in the way he said it, something that made me study his face more carefully. I'd seen his charge sheet when he was processed, second-degree murder, 20-year sentence. Not my business to question it. "You don't strike me as a Dostoevsky man, Officer Sullivan," he observed, eyes on my name badge. "I studied literature before I ended up here," I admitted, immediately regretting offering personal information. "Why did you end up here?" he asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "My rounds," I said abruptly, remembering myself. "I need to finish them." I moved on, unsettled by the brief exchange, by how easily I'd slipped into conversation with him, by how much I wanted to continue it. The next night he was reading a different book. "Whitman?" he said before I could ask. "Leaves of Grass." "I contain multitudes," I quoted automatically. His smile was warmer this time. "So you do know your literature." "College minor," I conceded, telling myself one more minute of conversation wouldn't hurt. The block was quiet, my fellow guard at the other end doing paperwork. "You?" "English professor," he said, and something in me froze. I hadn't realized he was educated. Hadn't thought about who he might have been before. Or I was. At Westlake University. I'd heard of it, a prestigious liberal arts school about 100 miles north. "What happened?" I asked, then shook my head. "Sorry, not my place to ask." "I was in the wrong place at the wrong time," Adam said anyway, his voice dropping lower. "And I knew the wrong person." He didn't elaborate, and I didn't press. But that night, after my shift, I found myself looking up his case in the prison database. Adam Reeves, 34, convicted of killing his colleague, another professor named David Harris, during an apparent argument in Harris's home. The prosecution claimed Reeves had been in love with Harris's wife, that Harris had discovered their affair and confronted Reeves, leading to a fight that ended with Harris stabbed to death. Open and shut, according to the file. Reeves's DNA at the scene. His fingerprints on the murder weapon. A witness who saw him leaving Harris's house that night. He'd maintained his innocence throughout the trial, but the jury hadn't believed him. I stared at his mugshot for a long time, searching for something in those intelligent eyes. Not the face of a killer, I thought, then immediately chided myself. How many times had I heard that about inmates who had undoubtedly committed the crimes they were charged with? Appearances meant nothing. Yet over the next weeks our midnight literary discussions became a routine. The night shift was long and often tedious. The other guards were either half asleep or busy with paperwork. No one noticed or cared that I lingered at cell 18 a few minutes longer than the others. We discussed Hemingway and Hugo, Austen and Angelo. Adam had a way of analyzing text that made me see familiar works in new ways. He spoke about books with a passion that transformed his face, erased the prison pallor and replaced it with animation and life. "Why murder mysteries?" I asked one night, noticing his current selection. "I like justice," he said simply. "In books, the truth always comes out in the end." The implication hung between us, unspoken but impossible to ignore. "You still maintain you didn't do it," I said. Not a question. "Would it matter if I did?" His eyes held mine steadily. "Every man in here claims innocence, Officer Sullivan." "Michael," I said, surprising both of us. "My name is Michael." He nodded slowly. "Michael," he repeated, and something about the way my name sounded in his voice made my chest tighten. "And yes, I am innocent. But that's hardly unique in here." "Tell me why you were there that night," I said, checking to make sure we were still alone. "At Harris's house." Adam was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said David called me. Said he'd found something important related to our research. We were collaborating on a paper about medieval poetry. When I got there, the door was open. I went in and found him. He swallowed hard. "I found him already dead. I picked up the knife without thinking. Stupid, I know. Pure shock. Then I heard someone at the door and panicked. I ran." He shook his head. "The prosecution said I was having an affair with his wife, Elaine. I wasn't. She was my student years ago, nothing more. But they built a whole narrative around jealousy and passion. It made for a cleaner story than the truth." "Which is?" "I think he was killed because of what he found." Adam's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. David had been researching funding sources for the university's new science building. He thought there were irregularities. Money being funneled from somewhere it shouldn't. "You're suggesting he was killed over university finances?" I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. "There's a lot of money in academia, Michael. Millions in donations, grants, endowments, and plenty of people willing to protect their interests." I wanted to dismiss it as the desperate theory of a guilty man, but something in his steady gaze made me hesitate. "Did you tell this to your lawyer?" "Of course. But without evidence, it was just speculation, and with all the physical evidence pointing to me." He shrugged. "My appeal is coming up in 3 months, but without new information, I don't expect much." I should have ended the conversation there. Should have maintained professional distance. Instead, I found myself saying, "I could look into it." His eyes widened. "What?" "I have access to your case files, and I have a friend in the county clerk's office. I could ask some questions." "Why would you do that?" It was a good question. One I didn't have a proper answer for, except the truth that I couldn't admit, that I'd begun to care about him in a way that went far beyond professional concern, that something about him had gotten under my skin, into my thoughts, making me question everything I thought I knew about my job, about justice, about myself. "Because something doesn't add up," I said instead. "And I don't like loose ends." The gratitude in his eyes was almost too much to bear. "Thank you," he said simply. I nodded and continued my rounds, my heart beating faster than it should have. Crossing a line I'd never crossed before. The next few weeks passed in a strange double life. By day, I researched Adam's case, calling in favors from old contacts, reviewing trial transcripts. By night, I continued our literary discussions, which had evolved into conversations about philosophy, music, our lives before prison. I learned he had grown up in Maine, the son of a librarian and a carpenter. That he played piano. That he loved the ocean but hated to swim. Each piece of information made him more real, more human. Each night I found myself looking forward to seeing him, to the brief moments when the prison faded away and we were just two people connecting over shared interests. "You seem different lately, my fellow guard," Torres remarked one evening as we checked in for our shift. "How so?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "I don't know. Distracted." He eyed me. "You seeing someone new?" I laughed, hoping it sounded natural. "I'm in no time for that." "You should make time. All work and no play, Sullivan." If only he knew. The truth was, I hadn't been able to think about anyone else since these conversations with Adam began. I'd broken dates, made excuses to friends. My entire off-duty life had become consumed with his case and with thoughts of him that I couldn't allow myself to fully acknowledge. One night I brought him a discovery that made his eyes light up. "I found something," I whispered, standing closer to his cell than I should have. The prosecution never looked into Harris's research. Never even mentioned it at trial. "That's not surprising," Adam replied. "Without evidence, it would seem irrelevant." "But I found his notes," I continued. "They were in an evidence box that was never opened during trial. Personal effects from his office. There's a notebook with names, figures. And this." I slipped a folded photocopy through the bars. "A bank statement showing large deposits to an account that might be connected to the Dean of Sciences." Adam's fingers brushed mine as he took the paper, the brief contact sending an electric current through me. He unfolded it carefully, eyes scanning the information. "This could be nothing," he cautioned, but I could hear the hope in his voice. "Or it could be something," I countered. "I'm meeting with your appeal lawyer tomorrow. She thinks there might be grounds for a new trial if we can connect these financial irregularities to a motive for someone else to have killed Harris." "Why are you doing this?" Adam asked again, his eyes searching mine. "You're risking your job, your reputation." The question hung between us in the midnight quiet of the cell block. I could have given 100 safe answers. Because I believe in justice. Because I think the system failed you. Because it's the right thing to do. Instead, I told him the truth. "Because I can't stop thinking about you," I admitted, voice barely audible. "About who you are. About who you could be outside these walls." The confession seemed to hang in the air between us, changing everything. Adam's expression softened, a complex mix of emotions crossing his face. "Michael," he began, but footsteps from the end of the corridor cut him off. Torres was making his rounds. "I should go," I said quickly, stepping back from his cell. "I'll let you know what happens with the lawyer." As I walked away, I felt his eyes on my back, felt the weight of what I just admitted. To him. To myself. The meeting with Adam's appeal lawyer, Sophia Chen, went better than I'd expected. She was skeptical at first about my involvement, but the evidence I'd gathered spoke for itself. "This creates reasonable doubt," she acknowledged, reviewing the documents. "And with the witness testimony we've recently uncovered, a neighbor who saw a different car in Harris's driveway after Reeves left, we might have enough for a new trial." "There's more," I told her, pushing another folder across the desk. Harris's widow contacted me after I reached out. She didn't believe Adam was guilty either, but she was pressured by the police to support their theory. She says Harris had been receiving threatening phone calls in the weeks before his death. He wouldn't tell her what they were about, just that he was onto something big. Sophia raised her eyebrows. "You've been busy, Officer Sullivan. May I ask why you've taken such an interest in this case?" I gave her the answer I'd prepared. "I believe a miscarriage of justice occurred. I'm in a position to help correct it." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Well, whatever your reasons, Adam is lucky to have you in his corner. We'll file the appeal paperwork tomorrow. With this new evidence, I think we have a strong case. As I left her office, I felt simultaneously lighter and heavier. Lighter with hope that Adam might be freed, heavier with the knowledge of what that would mean for us. Whatever us was or could be. That night, I shared the news with Adam, watching his face transform with cautious optimism. It's not a guarantee, I warned. The appeal process is long and the prosecution will fight it. But it's a chance, he said, voice thick with emotion. More than I've had in 2 years. His hand gripped the bars between us. Michael, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet, I said. Save it for when you're free. Free, the word hung between us, both promise and problem. If he was exonerated, released, what then? Would there be a place for me in his reclaimed life? Should there be? The next weeks passed in a blur of legal developments. Sophia filed the appeal. The prosecution fought back but couldn't explain away the new evidence. A hearing was scheduled to determine if a new trial would be granted. Meanwhile, Adam and I continued our midnight conversations, now tinged with a new electricity. We never explicitly discussed my confession or what might happen if he was released, but it was always there in the undercurrent of our words, in the lingering looks, in the way our fingers sometimes brushed when I passed him books or notes. "What will you do first?" I asked him one night. "If you get out—" "See the ocean," he answered without hesitation. "Stand on a beach and just breathe." "Maine?" I asked, remembering his childhood home. He smiled. "Maybe, or somewhere new. Somewhere I can start over." He paused. "What about you, Michael? Ever think about leaving this place?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't know," I admitted. "This job has been my life for so long." "But is it the life you want?" His eyes held mine, intense and searching. "You said you studied literature. That wasn't leading you to prison work." "Plans change," I said simply. "Life happens." "Yes," he agreed quietly. "It does." The day of the hearing arrived. I had arranged to testify about finding the evidence in the case files, about the inconsistencies I'd noticed. I dressed in my one good suit, feeling strangely vulnerable out of my guard's uniform. Adam was brought in wearing a shirt and tie instead of his usual prison garb, looking more like the professor he'd once been. Our eyes met across the courtroom, and he gave me a small nod, a ghost of a smile. The hearing proceeded with legal arguments I barely followed, my attention fixed on the back of Adam's head, on the tension in his shoulders. When it was my turn to testify, I spoke clearly and factually about the evidence I'd discovered, careful not to let my personal feelings color my testimony. After hours of presentations, the judge announced her decision. Based on the new evidence presented, I find sufficient grounds to grant Mr. Reeves a new trial. Furthermore, given the substantive doubts raised about the original conviction, I am ordering his release on bail pending retrial. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Adam's shoulders sagged with relief. Sophia patted his back, beaming. And I sat frozen, a storm of emotions making it hard to breathe. He would be free. Tonight. Out of my cell block. Beyond my watch. The thing I'd worked for, hoped for, was happening, and it terrified me. After the hearing, as Adam was being processed for release, Sophia approached me in the hallway. "He asked me to give you this," she said, handing me a folded note. "And to thank you again. Your investigation changed everything." I took the paper, nodding wordlessly. "He also asked if you would meet him. Tomorrow evening at Harborview Park. 7 o'clock by the pier." She studied my face. "You don't seem as happy as I expected, Officer Sullivan." "It's complicated," I managed. Her expression softened with understanding. "It often is when we care about someone we're not supposed to." After she left, I unfolded the note. "Michael, freedom is a strange concept when you've been without it. I'm not sure I remember how it feels. But I know I want to rediscover it with you beside me, if you're willing. No bars between us. No roles to play. Just two people who found each other in the most unlikely of places. Meet me tomorrow? We can watch the sunset over the water and talk about Whitman or anything else you want. Adam. I read it 3 times, my heart pounding. Then I carefully folded it and put it in my pocket, next to my heart. The next evening, I found myself driving to Harborview Park, still uncertain what I would say or do when I saw him. The sun was beginning its descent as I parked, casting golden light across the bay. I spotted him immediately, standing at the end of the pier, silhouetted against the glowing sky. He turned as I approached, and for the first time, I saw him truly free. No uniform, no cell, no prescribed distance between us. Just Adam in jeans and a blue sweater, the wind ruffling his hair, which was already growing out from the prison cut. "You came," he said, smile spreading across his face. "I did," I confirmed, stopping a few feet away, old habits of caution still in place. "It's strange," he said, gesturing around us. "All this space, all this sky. I've been free for less than 24 hours, and already I'm different. Or maybe I'm finally becoming myself again." "It suits you," I told him honestly. "Freedom. I wouldn't have it without you," he said, moving closer. "You risked everything for me." It was the right thing to do. Was that the only reason? His eyes searched mine. I took a deep breath, finally allowing myself to say the words I'd held back for so long. "No, I did it because I couldn't bear to see you caged. Because somewhere along the way, between Dostoevsky and Whitman, I fell in love with your mind. With who you are." He closed the remaining distance between us, his hand reaching for mine. "I spent 2 years thinking I would never touch another person with affection again," he said softly. "Never hold someone. Never be held." I twined my fingers with his, the simple contact more intimate than anything I'd experienced in years. "And now?" "Now I want to make up for lost time," he said. "With you, if you want that too. If it's not too complicated." I thought about my job, about the questions that would arise if I pursued a relationship with a former inmate, about the career I might be sacrificing. Then I looked at Adam, at the hope and vulnerability in his eyes, and realized none of it mattered compared to this chance at something real. "I want that too," I said finally. "It'll be complicated. There will be talk, challenges, but I'm tired of living behind my own kind of bars." The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise. He stepped closer still, one hand rising to touch my cheek. "May I?" he asked, his intention clear. In answer, I leaned forward and kissed him, gently at first, then with growing certainty. His lips were warm, his touch hesitant then eager. Around us, the park continued to exist, distant voices, the lap of water against the pier, the cry of seagulls, but for me, the world had narrowed to this moment, this man. When we finally broke apart, the sun had dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Adam kept his hand in mine as we turned to watch it together. "I used to imagine this," I admitted. "You, free. What it would look like." "And?" he asked, glancing at me. "Does reality match the fantasy?" I studied him. The way the fading light caught in his eyes, the relaxed set of his shoulders, the smile that seemed permanently etched on his face now. "It's better," I told him honestly. He squeezed my hand. "This is just the beginning," he promised. "There's still the retrial, the investigation into what really happened to David. It won't be easy." "Nothing worth having ever is," I replied. As darkness fell around us, we stood together watching stars appear one by one, no walls between us, no roles to maintain, just 2 people who had found each other across an impossible divide, now standing side by side in the wide open world. I had guarded him every day, imagining him free. Now I could walk beside him and discover what freedom meant for both of us.